You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
From kitchen chaos to well-oiled machines, get ready for newfangled technology and old-school know-how. Stories and a good bit of fun. I'm Simon, and this is Culinary Mechanic.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Hey, is Matthew Wampler from Clear Cogs, returning to Culinary Mechanic. Matt, welcome.
Simon, always a pleasure. Good to see you.
And good to be seen, but good to see you too. When last we saw our heroes, you had been rolling along with Clear Cogs, and I was just hoping that we could kind of get a little bit of an update about where things are, because I think that the platform that you have created is pretty fascinating, and just I want our listeners to understand more about it. So take it away, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, at this point, we're a 3-year-old company, and you kind of look back and you start out as two guys in a garage just trying to figure things out. There's a year of that. There's a year of just grinding it out, trying to sell and figure out exactly what the product's going to be. And, 2024 was a great year for us. And all of a sudden, you wake up and we're in 4 countries, 100 brands ranging from regional chains to multi-billion-dollar publicly traded companies. It's been a roller coaster. We just closed our seed funding round, so we got we now have a couple $1 million of capital to really go take this thing to the next level. So it's 2025 is an exciting time.
Oh, that's amazing. So give us the, I don't know, 5,000-foot view of how you're helping restaurants.
Yeah, I mean, running a restaurant is incredibly hard, as my buddy Jason Berkowitz loves to say. It's a thankless job a lot of days where you just walk in the door and wait to get, sucker punched in the gut. We're a predictive analytics company. Our goal is to help restaurants have more days go right. So the way it works is, look, we tell you here's the right amount of food to prep, the right number of people to be in the store, and what to order so that, you're not playing catch up and reacting.
Amen to not playing catch up.
It's funny. I was just having this conversation, and, you know, I remember turning around my first restaurant like it was a total nightmare. I walk in the front door, all you can smell is the grease trap hitting you. The HVAC's out. There's like 4 employees. Like, and we had ice buckets on top of the cold table compressors to keep the from overheating. It was one of those, classic restaurant turnaround experiences. And like slowly I got the hang of it. And, you know, once you get dialed in, there's this magic feeling in a restaurant. And like whenever I think of dialed in, it always takes me back there. I remember Homecoming 2012. We just got crushed. Like Maryland was playing, I think it was NC State, and for whatever reason, everybody was in town. Like line out the door for 8 hours, 2 cold tables, fully stacked, just nonstop. But like on that day, like we were dialed in, we got everything right. How can we use technology to help our people be more dialed in and get more of these days right?
I mean, that really makes me think about, like, I met this chef a couple years back, and she was in Indianapolis, and her restaurant was like 2 miles from the Indy 500.
Yeah.
And during that time, she would run 24-hour prep. And she would have like refrigerated trucks outside the back door. And I remember looking at her and I said, Lydia, like, how do you do that? And she's like, we planned for 6 months. She goes, and that part kind of sucks. But when we get close to it, everybody gets excited. Everybody's in. Sometimes we have to get like we have to get like Jimmy and Terry to bring their brother-in-law in for a couple of days, and they're excited. And then it's just go, go, go. But we've done all this planning and we've got all this information from previous years and we use it. And she goes, the first year was awful. The second, third, fourth, those were fun. But now she says, we know what we're doing. So the dialed in thing like hits me. I'm like, that's it.
Well,
And
and like,
so,
so my first store was on a college campus. We were basically open 24 hours a day. Like, you'd
ooh,
close at like 3 a.m. and, clean the place out. You're out at 5, prep starts at 6 a.m. Right. And, it's funny. That was the first store. So that was what I was used to. High volume, lots going on. And by the way, those great days, the Indy 500, those are the wonderful moments, those feelings. That's great.
mhm,
But my second store opened up really low volume. And you find it's so much harder at
harder.
low volume, right? And it's not the Friday night that you get wrong that really hits the bottom line. It's, the Tuesday, Wednesday, it's these little decisions where if you have any little inefficiency in a low volume store, it really hits you. So like, one of the things that was a motivation for Clear Cogs was, we had these decisions, they're really set decisions every day. It's 2 hours prior to close. Can I shut the ovens off and start cleaning, or do I need to bake another cycle of bread?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, if you don't have enough bread, you can't serve customers, and whatever bread you have left over, you basically are throwing away, right? So like that hits
Right.
you on the bottom line. Our guys were really looking out the door, is it nice out? Is there traffic? And then they make a guess. And none of the technology we had an answer to this, right? You could go look at historic sales, but like that still doesn't answer the question, do I need to bake another cycle of bread? And so fundamentally, we thought, look, let's go use the data they have in their POS. Let's go look at every Tuesday. Let's look at, that last 2 hours, how weather affects it, what's on the menu. Go really deep on the data side, also that we can provide a really simple answer to an operator in their language. Today
Right.
it's Tuesday, 2 hours prior to close, 18 sticks of bread. And that's fundamentally still what the company does. Take all of your data, synthesize it down to those key decision points each day so that you're just turning down the inefficiencies. And, it adds percentage points to the bottom line.
Absolutely. I love the granularity of that because I think about the days. I mean, God, I'm old, so I think about cooking and working in restaurants, whether they be small ones or big ones, or being in hotels, and it's like you're literally like licking your finger, walking out and like putting it out to the wind, you know, and going, okay, what's about to happen, or you just and you have no like, there's just no way to think about it.
And by the way, hats off to restaurants. They do a good job at it. I know we all like to complain when somebody runs out of this or that, but like for the most part, the men and women that are running restaurants are actually doing a great job at guessing. But,
Yeah.
that's stressful and inefficient. And if we can make their lives a little simpler and, a little more profitable, like let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm helping a restaurant company right now, and by the way, this guy, as of December 23rd, I think, had two restaurants, and here we are on, well, we're in early April. By the time this airs, it'll be a little bit later than that, but early April, and this guy's now got four operating units. He doubled the size of his company in the last 4 months.
That's so hard, right? Like, how do
Dude.
I get two new general managers? How do I get, it's, yeah.
Yeah. Well, a small plug for Culinary Mechanic here. He and I are pretty good friends, and his right hand man called me one day and said, "I need you to come in and do that thing you do." And I was like, "What? What thing is it that I do?" And he's like, "I need you to come in and like talk to the young managers, the young people that have never been managers, and help them understand what they're about to go through." And so we did that for a month prior to his newest opening. And I mean, they're literally now a week into their fourth restaurant. And one of the newest managers came to me and he's like, "I had two problems over the weekend." I said, "Yeah, tell me about them." And he starts telling me about this young lady who just started crying in the middle of service because it was the pressure was on.
Yeah.
And so they got through the rush and he got her off the line. He took over. And this is like the manager. So he's actually the cashier of a quick serve joint, right? Watching, but he stepped in and he finished the orders, let her kind of go get some water, pulled her off to the side, and he said, kind of talked her through the whole thing and said, "Where are you? What's going on?" And she's like, "Oh, it's hard." He says, "We're on day 3 of a brand new restaurant. Everybody's struggling. It's okay." And, kind of like made sure she was all right. And then he says, "I got to ask though, like, do you want to be here?" "Oh, yes, I want to be here." He says, "Then we'll help you. Everybody here will help you."
And Simon, like, by the way, like that's the moment, right? That's the moment where you either lose an employee that could be great, or like you create that great, staff member, team member, right? That's amazing. I love it. People forget
And
it's
so
the people business.
totally people all day long. And so the best part is he goes, "So are you going to go home now?" She says, "No, she kind of brightened up and she said, "No, I'm in it." And I said, "Okay, so like what happened from there?" He's like, "She dug in and like by the end of the shift, she had it." And I said, "Cool. Now make sure that tomorrow she gets a high five just for showing up." And a high five every time she's doing things right. And by the way, congratulations. And I gave him a high five and I was like, "That's exactly what we've been talking about for the last." He's like, "I didn't ever know how to do that before. Thank you." So whatever, but
And
it's like we don't get that training, right? Like as people generally,
yeah,
we aren't taught to be leaders, so it's fun for me, but it's like those are the things that run those restaurants. Those are the things that help turn what you described around, right? As how
well,
we get the people moving.
in the chaos of the day running a restaurant, there are all these little things you're doing. Like that's the one that really matters, those few moments, because it's 6 months from now when there's a new employee that's in that same situation. And you've created the culture where she is going to remember that moment and pull that employee aside and be like, hey, it's okay. How can I help? I mean, that's
Yeah.
huge. But Simon, I had a question for you. So
Yes.
going from 2 to 4. I mean, I remember it vividly. One, you just eat, sleep, and breathe at your restaurant. Two, you can split yourself in two, spend half your time here and half your time there, and play whack-a-mole with problems. But 4, you can't. And I actually struggled with that transition. How do you, from a, owner, area manager perspective, how do you get over that hurdle?
I think the biggest thing for this guy and I think in general is you gotta surround yourself with people who care, who love it, who are living it, right? Like his second location is his banger. It's across the street from very much like what you said on a campus. He's across the street from Seattle University, which is, it is perfect. These are young kids who actually tend to come from a little bit of money. Like this isn't your like average community college. It's a little bit wealthier. And so the kids come in and they keep him rocking from 8 in the morning for breakfast all the way through to 11 o'clock at night. And at 11 o'clock is when lunch really starts to go. And man, I was in there yesterday and I was like, "Oh, I gotta get out of here. This is scary. Like, this is like a flood of people." And his manager is just this steely-eyed little lady. If she's 4'11", I'm shocked. Like maybe with her big sneakers on.
Yeah, yeah.
And she's kind of hovering behind people and like checking on them and making sure everything's okay. You hear her like walk into the prep kitchen going, "No, no, I need that other salsa now." Right? It's tacos, so it's Mexican food, and she's like, "I need that now." And then she walks back up on the line and goes, "You go over there," and just she's just driving it. And so
But
the
go
point
having
is
one
of
of
that
those, you
is
can have one of those, right? Or you can
right.
have two of those. But like if I got to go from 2 to 4, I need two more people like that. And they don't just magically grow on trees.
So I asked him when I started working with him, I asked the owner, I said, "Hey, can I be like, let me help you find a new manager and bring them in?" He's like, "You want to bring somebody in from outside?" I said, "Yeah, you need a solid manager for this new place." And he said, "No." And I was like, Oh, okay, tell me more about no. Like he's like, no, if you come to work with me, then I want you to help me grow my managers from the ground up. He says,
Yeah.
I have people who love it here. I have a couple of people who I think can do the work. They just don't know what the work is and they just don't know how to approach it. And one of them is that guy who kept the young lady from leaving. And his name is Miguel. And Miguel is a stud. Right?
Shout
And
out to
he just
Miguel.
is
He's killing it.
uh yes, every moment of every day he is on it. I've been so impressed with him, but he's never been taught how to think like a coach, like a leader, like a manager, right? And so I've been kind of trying to give him as much of that and really help him through the little things. And I love the fact that he comes to me and tells me what he did and says, "Did I do that right?" I'm like, "You slated, right?" But this owner is committed to his people and his culture because he was at the best story ever of this guy is they were catering a wedding for some good friends, right? People that I used to work with, people that he used to work with, and the little lady, they make tortilla when they go on site for catering, they make all tortillas to order right there, every single one. And he was like, well, trying to stock the buffet with tacos, and he turns with a tray and he goes, "Okay, give me those tortillas." And she looks up at him and she goes, "Nope, they're not ready yet." And I thought to myself, when you have trained your people so well that you won't let the owner deviate from the structure and quality and integrity of product, you have done it correctly. And that's when he looked at all of his people and said, "I love you. Thank you. Yes. Well, wait." Turned around to the buffet and said, "Hang on a minute. Tortillas are not quite ready, but we're making them fresh." And obviously, they're outdoors at a wedding and they can see that they're cooking right there. It was all good. But that is the culture, right? And so the shortish answer to your question of how do you go from 2 to 4 is people and expectations and being clear about what it is you want, right? And what it is you want from those people. And yeah, it's hard to find one and it's hard to find two. And how do you get four? His answer is people, people, people. That first
So
manager, here's another piece that blew me away. That manager, that little tiny lady, she was having a one-on-one with him yesterday with the owner, and she says, I'm gonna cover my Tuesday, Wednesday shifts and put somebody into cashier, and I'm gonna go to the ghost kitchen, which is location number 3, because I want to make sure that the food quality is good because we put a new guy in there and I want to make sure that that's really going well because there's not actually a manager on site for that because it's such a small thing. So I'm going to go spend 2 days and really make sure that everything is the way we want it. And that is once again, it's the culture of this is. And he said he looks at me and he says, "I didn't tell her to do that. I didn't even ask her to do that. That's what she felt is needed."
I had this long debate with Josh from Mies about this exact thing. He's a process guy, right? Which I'm
Uh-huh.
envious of. I am not type A. He's type A process, right? He had processes for everything, and you can manage the process, which is very logical and works really well. I always came about it more on the people side, right? Like you get the right people, you get them aligned, you set them free, yeah, you give them encouragement, they'll figure out the problems. Like you put processes in place when you can't get the right people to make the right decisions.
I don't know about you, but I did not get into the restaurant business to spend all my time in a cramped little office. I love being in the kitchen, out on the floor. And if you're nodding your head right now, I want to introduce you to an amazing company called Starfish. Look, I've gotten to know their CEO, Jordan, recently, and what they're building really impresses me. They're using AI to read your P&L, and they're going to email you actionable insights every week so you can lower your costs and increase revenue. Best part is you don't have to spend time digging through your P&Ls, poring over reports in that cramped little office. Starfish is going to do that for you. so you can get back to the part of the business that you love. If you're interested, go to their website, usestarfish.com. That's USE starfish.com. And tell them Simon sent you. Okay, I'm right in the middle.
Yeah, no, there's a healthy in between.
So check this out. I was born, I am the child. Well, first of all, I'm the child of hippies, right? But I am the child of somebody who did social work for years. So I'm very like, so empathy is strong in my blood. Okay. But the other side is dad was a research guy, right?
Oh,
Okay. So he's the guy that you went to when you were a graduate student in environmental sciences at the University of Massachusetts, and you have a thesis that you want to prove. He says, oh, you want to get this result? This is the process that you go through. You do this, you measure that, you study this, you measure that. This is the equipment that you need to do that. These are the number of tests, these are the number of processes. So I'm the process guy, right, as growing up. But as I got farther into my career, I realized no matter how good my process is, if I don't have people buying in, if I don't have people who believe, it doesn't matter. I'm just a one person,
yeah.
right? And so what I have come to believe is that processes are those bumpers you put on the bowling alley, right? Processes keep you hemmed on from side to side, right? And the ability to go down the bowling alley is amazing when you can't get off the rails because the processes keep you there, right?
Yeah, and they help you with growing and being systemized, going from two to four, right? Like you need to start having processes in place. I kind of got a kick out of it. I came from the franchised background, right?
Right.
So the processes were in place. They gave me the playbook for success. This is
Right.
what you do every day. This is how often you scrub the mop guards and when you clean the grease trap and so on and so forth. So I didn't have to think about the processes. But the fact that they were there is why I was successful and why you're able to run, 3,000 units, all
Yeah.
with same high standards and service. I often forget that, as an independent owner operator, right, you have to kind of write your own processes. And if you don't have them, going from, two to four would be very, very difficult.
Yeah. And so some of what I do with this guy is I'm like, so what's the way that we're going to go like what is the way?
Yeah.
Right? And the great thing is his brand is named after his father. It's Carmelo's Tacos, right? So it's the Carmelo's way. It's great. It's really easy. It's like, what is the Carmelo's way for this? And he's like, oh, we do this. And I'm like, where is it written down to tell me that? He's like, oh, I don't know. And so at that point, I open up my computer and I start typing, and we create like a quick little form on it. And then he now has really advanced himself. He hired a part-time person who used to manage for him, and that person is doing all his HR stuff. So all the onboarding stuff just all goes to him. All the training goes to him. It's great,
By
but
the way,
once again,
you've mentioned tacos enough that I think I'm going to be getting a taco this afternoon.
yeah, man. Yeah, man. Uh, this
I'm
guy, like his stuff is so good.
So you work with all these companies, right? You got Carmelo's. Like, how are they doing forecasting? How do they know how much salsa to have? How do they know how much chicken to marinate today for tomorrow? Like, and maybe not just one company, but in general, what do you see out there?
I see people just I see some people using their data, right? Some people are using their data on a very elemental level. Good order guides. They put in the on hand, the order column. They analyze it day over day. If they're smart, they keep last week's order guide just behind this week's order guide, and they can go back and look at a week's history, right? That's the elemental old school data usage,
Yeah, yeah,
right? These guys, they are so busy that it kind of doesn't matter. Just order
yeah.
more. Like they now have four, and that fourth location is in a neighborhood, and they had some building issues. So they took almost 4 months longer than expected because it was the building that kept them from finishing.
Yeah.
So their sign, their neon sign has been lit for 4 months. The day they opened, people started to just walk in, right? It's not like, oh, we didn't know you were here. No, people have been waiting. So this is going to be a monster. It's in a neighborhood. It's in the center of a neighborhood, sandwiched between two, like, are they subways? Train stations, I guess, and the local community colleges down there. But on the north side of them is like the bar district of Seattle, right? It's called Capitol Hill, and it is the party place. So I can't even imagine what's going to happen. I'm just like, oh, prep more, just prep more, because that's what they do. They just like when in doubt, they just keep going with more.
I got a
So
great delayed store opening story for you, but let's finish
hit
this
me.
conversation real quick. So you've got the old school way, right? Like
Okay.
I'm filling out forms. I can go look through them. I can see what I've been ordering in the past. Very analog, looking at the numbers. How else are people doing it?
That's the bulk of it. Other people are just like, I think I need this, and so I do that. I don't see a lot of people yet doing anywhere near what you've got, right? Because some people don't know that it exists, and some people are like, we're an analog, especially small restaurants. We're an analog group. We live in an analog world. And so even the smallest pieces, like some of the POS systems that still exist blow me away. Like Toast is this quantum leap. Spot on is a quantum leap. The amount of information that you can get. And I'm good with data and I'm good with reports, and I still struggle to be able to like know all the ways that I can use that information.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, as an industry, we struggle just to get recipes digitized, and get it yields correct, let
Shout out
alone.
to Me's.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Hey, you know what? There's another quantum leap. It's funny. I mean, you just go back 10 years, Chowly, like, people had like 5 tablets, they couldn't even get it through one POS. There's been a lot of advancement there. But I will say this, more than just getting prep and production right, taking something off someone's plate, having to keep all your order forms and go through them. Nobody gets into this industry because that's what they want to do.
No, 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 no. In fact, what I tell people is here's like two, three little ways to make that go easier. Here's two, three little ways to make that go faster. Because I want to have all that information and have all that go well, and then get back to the part I like, which is shooting the shit on the line while we're busting out a couple hundred covers, or getting an hour or two to like play with that like shipment of, I don't know, heirloom carrots that came in.
Yeah.
Like what is the new, or work on the next set of specials or whatever. Like the food and the people are the things that make me excited about the business. I learned to be good at that other stuff so that I had the opportunity to. Because I tell people, I'm like, if you don't manage the business, you don't get to have the fun. Like you don't get
Yeah.
to do that. It just doesn't work, right? Yeah,
We
it's
used, we used to have a
taking things
sign in
off your
Jim.
plate is great.
We used to have a
What's
sign
that?
in Jimmy John's that said, if you do the things you need to do now, then maybe you'll be able to do the things you want to do tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, similarly, it's do the things you have to do so you can get to the things you get to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
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 yeah.
exactly.
You know. I've also been trying to make that own shift with some people. It's like they say, "Oh, I have to go to work." It's not, you get to go to work. You get the opportunity to go to work and provide for your family, because not everybody can. Let's be honest, not everybody's able to right now, right? Just because of life and things. So you get to go do all those things, and you get to make people smile because your food is so good, and you get to create experiences for people. That for me is like, that's a privilege, and not everybody gets it. So I like to be grateful for those little tiny itty bitty things that are not always little itty bitty.
It's all about perspective.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. All right. Tell me about there was a story you were going to tell me, and I want to hear that one. Delayed
Oh,
openings.
delayed store openings. I'm sorry, you
Yeah.
brought up the delayed store opening. All right, so I had started out in the industry like 21, right? So my first one was a turnaround. I think I'm like 23 when I sign my like second lease for a store. I am like giddy about this. I got the bank loan. We find the spot, architecture plans, the whole 9 yards. So I'm in the DC suburbs, and the permitting takes forever. So you got to hire a permit expediter and all that kind of stuff. Takes 9 months to get this store open. We come through for the final walkthrough. And by the way, throughout the entire process, I am pestering the permitting people, the county, you name it, trying to get this through because it just keeps getting delayed. We go through the final walkthrough with the county, and the guy looks at it and he says, your floating sink isn't quite in compliance. So while they could, I guess, if you were handicapped, you could, swing your legs underneath, you couldn't actually swing the back. So technically it's out of compliance. I need you to move your entire wall, bathroom wall into the kitchen 1 inch. And I'm like, well, like, no, like there's no way we can do that. That, we're supposed to open next week. We're already paying rent, right? Like I got interest due for the bank. Like this will literally bankrupt me if they actually make us do this thing. And so, we fight with the guys the whole 9 yards and they leave. And my contractor's like, well, what do you want to do? Like, uh, there's not much we can do. And I'm like, well, we got to go down to the county and talk with these people. He's like, okay, let's go down to the county. And I called my wife and I'm like, honey, here's the deal. The county's doing all this stuff. Like, I am going to the county office and either I'm going to end up in prison because I'm going to throw a hissy fit or like they're going to get this fixed. But one of these two things is going to happen. And we went in, and I kid you not, like, an hour of talking to people. It finally got to the point where they basically said, no, go fix it. And I threw, it's like, no, we're not. Like they're calling security to escort me out. And finally, the head guy's like, what in the hell is going on out here? And I'm like, we'll call him Bob. Bob, I've emailed you 10 times. Like, I go out of business if you guys are going to make me move this wall, blah, blah, blah. And finally, he's like, all right, we'll send out a new person tomorrow. And they approved the thing. And so we finally got open. But it's like, it was this close to like just bankrupting me and being, a nightmare.
Like
And this is what's going on behind the scenes at every restaurant that's opening across the country. Like
totally.
there's a whole thing there of, how do you get the right architect and contractor? So much goes into opening a restaurant.
Well, they were ready to go with number four. They were ready to go in like October, November, and some inspection came in and found out that there was something wrong with the floor drains, and it was something the owner had done that like the building hadn't done, and so they stopped everything and tore up the floors.
Oh,
And I was like, "Say what now?" I'm like, and he wasn't. He like my guy was not panicking, and I was like, are you sure?" And he goes, sometimes it's just got to be, but they're not charging me rent. They're not, like while
yeah.
all these things are doing it. And I said, okay, that's cool. And then
Also,
we
a good
get into
relationship with your landlord goes a long way.
totally. And so now we're in like mid-February, and I was like, when are we talking? He's like, oh, March 1st. I'm like, okay. Maybe even said like February 20 something. And then we get closer, and he's like, nah, we had some issues with this. He says, I've now come to peace with the fact that we're gonna open when we open. Like he's like, we're gonna get there when we get there. He goes, but when we get there, because we've had all this time, we're gonna be ready. And
Yeah.
so like we started getting like he really like he had time, he had a really good planned out like training in his other restaurants. He got people like almost 3 weeks of training he paid for.
I was going to say that was the one that was killing me is like, I've got a whole staff we've hired that we're
Yeah.
paying right now,
Yep.
in
Yep.
another restaurant. Like every week hits you not only with the rent, but the interest and the extra labor. It's a whole
Yep.
thing.
No, totally. But it was so like I'm super impressed. Like I was in there yesterday. It was day 7, and the tacos that I ate for lunch, I was like, how are you like this is good. This is as good as your other restaurants. He's like, she works in restaurant number 1. He works in restaurant number 2. But he's like, these are all people that are splitting their time right now and may continue to split their time. You know, it's like we added some people, but we added some people to those to the original restaurants. And because restaurant number, this is interesting. Restaurant number 4 is 6 blocks from restaurant number 1,
Oh, I love that.
but they're different neighborhoods.
Yeah,
One sits at the top of the hill, one sits in the middle of the hill. And so like they're totally willing. I'll just swap a couple shifts. So they were able to backfill in the old restaurants, right? And then make it so that they can just have some pros in their new one. So it wasn't all new people. So that was amazing.
that is nice. That's really nice.
So recently, you and I were talking, and you were telling me about something really cool, and the fact that you're putting together your own podcast.
My
I want to
podcast,
hear about this sucker.
we just started recording. It's the Restaurant AI podcast. It's
Nice.
yeah, it should be coming out next month. It should probably be coming out about the time that this episode comes out. Um,
Awesome.
no, I'm
Well,
really
let's
excited.
coordinate that then.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's coordinate that. Like, let's be on it.
I'm really excited about it. So the thing that has been the most fun in this chapter of my life is I have gotten to make great relationships with some incredibly smart and interesting people. And I find myself, on a weekly basis, just being mind blown by some of the people that I talk to and the information they share. And it was like, these are the conversations that I want to be a part of, and I think people want to hear. I almost feel
Yeah.
like selfish that only I am getting this information. So we're going to bring on the best AI, machine learning tech people that aren't necessarily from the industry, right?
Right.
We're going to bring on the capital allocators that are investing in the future of restaurant technology. And we're going to bring on the brands that are actually bringing these technologies in. It's not going to be infomercials for companies. It's just going to be real conversations led by my honest and genuine curiosity on what is what is the state of technology today? Where is it going in restaurants? How is this going to play out? So that we can kind of get a sense of what do the next year, 5 years, 10 years look like.
That's awesome. I for one am like, sign me up. Follow.
I
I
love it.
mean,
I got my first
ah,
listener.
yes, I will be listener number 1. I think that as much as I call myself an analog guy, right? Like old school methods have always worked for me. I love the technology side of things.
I
I
was going to say
love that there's
we're
new
sit.
ways to push things through to make other things easier, as you said earlier, to take things off people's plates. But the way that the machines, like the way the things that you can do with AI just continue to astound me. So I'm in.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a little hard to call you analog as we're sitting on your podcast, recording digitally with your logo that's, flashing in the background. And I think we met in a digital one of Sean's like groups, I believe.
Uh-huh.
It's yeah, you're definitely a little tech forward.
I'm the tech forward analog guy. I don't know, man.
Yeah. Hey,
Well,
I think those are,
gosh.
by the way, the most interesting experiences. Taking somebody that is not natural to a world and putting
Yeah.
them in there and watching them learn how you adapt to it. Because the institutional knowledge that you have accumulated over the years is gold. That person, you pulling him aside, was it Marcus pulling that girl aside, and just, hey, how are you? You're doing great. Like that stuff can't be lost, but also that mentality on bringing technology in, because tech doesn't just fix everything. You got to find the right things for the right operation. Like, yeah, you got a good package there.
I'm trying, man. The funny thing for me is like personally enjoy the technology and what it can do and all those things. I just am so steeped in the old way that like I try to find the middle, right? I it's interesting. I talk with a lot of folks about like the craft of cooking, the craft of leading, the craft of managing, and this this whole venture, like podcasting and you know, being a virtual consultant, because I'm on Zoom talking to people around the country about how their restaurants go. And it's like, man, this all by itself is its own craft. And I tell people like if you want to learn how to use your knife, you pick up a 50-pound bag of onions, put it on the counter, you open the damn thing up and you start to slice. Right? Well, I'm way early. I'm like the first 5 pounds of my 50-pound bag when it comes to like the digital stuff, like learning to make automated emails happen. Like, oh God, I don't really know what I'm doing. Press that button. Oh shit, that doesn't work. Oh, that's the one. Okay, got it. So
Join the
yeah,
club.
it's the
By the way, I
craft. It's
love
the
that
craft.
word craft. I think that does really capture it. It's part art, it's part skill set, it's part personality, and you improve upon it, you hone it over time. It really is a craft.
Yeah. One of the concepts that I spent a lot of 2024 sort of meditating, thinking on was two words, intention and craft. And so it's like the intention of craft, but on the other side, there's the craft of intention. Like, think about it. Ooh.
Got a little
I
heady there for a second.
just for a second. For me, the craft of intention is figuring out how you spend your time, what is important, right? Like that is the craft of intention. And it has to be molded because otherwise we float, right? And I think a lot of that for me heads towards the things that I'm really passionate about with my restaurants, and that is leadership, right? Because here's the thing, nobody drifts to greatness. Never. It just doesn't happen. You have to lead them to greatness. They have to have a direction. There has to be some intention, right? So that'll be a hat for me someday that'll say nobody drifts to greatness.
That's a good line.
Right? You have to lead them there, or you have to be led, or there has to be you need some form of roadmap, and the roadmap is intention. So that's our deep thought for the culinary mechanic.
Yeah, well, hey, in restaurants, everything's urgent, everything's immediate, everything's a panic. I wish I had more of your crafted intentionality because I feel like I just
Oof.
crafted the skill set to handle reacting to like chaos, right? I was really good at that, and I got really good at it because I spent a lot of time doing it.
Okay, you just brought up a story for me. So once upon a time, I was in a resort in Santa Barbara, California, kind of place where it was all cottages. There was like 20 cottages. Some of them were duplexes. So there's like 30 something rooms. And at that point, I considered myself like I'm the guy who could scramble out of any rush. I could get through, I could get out, and we'd be like, yeah. And I was working for a sous chef, and she was a ball buster, man. She was tough. She'd worked in some James Beard kitchens, James Beard winning kitchens, and had really like went to the Culinary Institute of America, like a refined badass. And she one day looks at me and she goes, "You know what? You're right. You can scramble out of anything." She says, "But wouldn't you rather not have to scramble? Wouldn't you rather have like the organization in your brain and in your movement that you are so cold and calculated that it looks easy?" She says, "Wouldn't you rather have that?" And I was like, "Man, I never thought of that." I was like 26 years old, and I was like, I've just always focused on the fact that I could do anything. And she's like, "But I don't have to scramble. I'm just I'm here and I'm here and I have a process and a way." And it really changed how I started to look at things. It's like if you don't get yourself into the shit, you don't have to dig out. And so she taught me to be like really like really intentional about like starting my day, having a really good list, not an list, having things like prioritize, like do this, do that, do this. When you're on the line and it's getting busy, like have a way, boom, 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 boom. And it was just, oh my gosh, like my cooking skills just went woof, through the roof in
Yeah,
probably
well,
6 months with her.
let me say this. For every one of those James Beard, chefs that's, classically trained and is intentional with the process, there are a heck of a lot more people like me that probably weren't great at school, that are ADHD, that are distractible and spend a whole lot of time just reacting, and they're probably pretty good in the chaos. And shameless plug, let's get those people clear cogs so that
There
you're
you
not
go.
having to have them react anymore because they're never going to save themselves. They
Right.
kind of like reacting. They're never going to be the organized ones that are reviewing the numbers accurately.
Yeah, and again, I'm right in the middle because like squirrel, whoa, there I go, I'm gone. Shiny object syndrome, boop, out the door. However, like when I remember to be intentional, man, things get easier. And so find like if I can tell anybody, like find a tool like Clear Cogs, take something off your plate, find the time to like be a little bit more intentional, and then allow the squirrel to happen.
Well, and I'll say it's a little bit like boiling frogs, right? Where you bring the temperature up slowly, they won't just jump out, right? Like
Right.
we, as restaurant operators, start to have a little chaos, and then a little bit more, and then one day you wake up and you manage insanity, but like you
Yeah.
don't even notice that you're managing insanity until Bill has to fill in for your shift, and he's like, "This is insanity." Or Simon, you show up and it's like, guys, you live in insanity. Let's put some structure around here. And I think
Yeah.
most people are unaware that they're living in insanity.
Totally. I know I wasn't for years. I didn't really, I'm like, this is how it is, you know? I mean, I learned
Simon,
some leadership lessons that same way.
my goal every morning, like first start, I was like, 22 at this time, like was to get a bagel. Like if it was a great day and I got all my prep done before opening, I could have a bagel. And the amount of work that I did between 6 a.m. and 10:15, 4 hours of work, like I prepped the entire store, constant movement, like everything was just a fine oiled machine. I took off like, building out stores. I had to do general managers and then I had to fill in. I wasn't even close to getting opened on time, right? Because I just slowly and surely like built this, incredibly work heavy prep, but I never actually sat down and thought, hey, is there a better way to do this? Like maybe I
No,
should bring somebody in. Maybe I should do some more the night before. No, I just, found myself. I got better at managing the insanity every morning.
yeah. I think that's a great way to describe it, right? It's like it just builds and builds and builds until you're in a corner and you can't get out. And that's where, well, and that's where burnout starts to happen for people, right? They
Yeah.
can't get out of the corner that they've painted themselves into. Guilty.
Burnout in restaurants? No.
I have a buddy who works at a Top Golf and he describes burnout as SOP. He's like, that's just normal. I'm like, no, dude, it's not. It might be a norm, but it's not normal. Or it shouldn't be normal. It shouldn't be normal. How's that?
We always felt like burnout. So if I bring in a new employee and they leave in the first like 3 to 4 weeks, like that's probably a good thing. But like your person that's there for a year or two, like we want them to stay, right? Because
Yep.
like not everyone's a fit for the industry. But how you get past that second, third year and make this a livable, lifestyle, career, that's what really matters.
Yeah. Sustainable action. What can you do every day that doesn't kill you?
Exactly.
Doesn't kill you. Well, on that note, I gotta say we covered some ground, Mr. Matthew Wampler.
Yes, we
Matt
do.
Wampler. Awesome. Um, Thanks for coming to play in the sandbox and telling us about what's going on with you and Clear Cogs. The Restaurant AI podcast. Sign me up. I am in. I cannot wait. And like I say, I think we need to coordinate like this episode with the launch of that, so because that'll be pretty dope. Because I think as you and I said before we started recording, community is what it's about. And I love the fact that you are a part of the Culinary Mechanic community. Um, so I will make sure in the show notes that everybody can find you and Clear Cogs. And once again, thanks for coming and playing. And to all you out there, please go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube or YouTube, and drop a follow, a subscribe, a like, even a review would be amazing. And I'll catch you on the flip side.
You're the best, Simon. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.